All right, good morning and welcome to Tuesday morning, August 16th edition of Sidelines. Rob Brown broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota Studios here in Wynn, Arkansas. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Service department every day, including Saturdays, 7:30 to 12:30. Got a lot to talk about. Jimmy Hodge is on with us, and we will lead off with Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart. Be joined in the second segment down in Birmingham. Doug Dean, the AU Daily Dose. Top of the second hour, Connor O'Gara will check in with us from Orlando Saturday down south, give great insight on the SEC and just a big college football picture. And in the fourth segment, we'll be joined by Yancy Porter down in Oxford, live from the Grove, checking in what's going on with Ole Miss. There's a lot going on everywhere. We'll be with 8 to 10 as we are every Monday through Saturday, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee. Of course, if you miss us live, go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta. We're on there. And then Kicks 96.3 FM in Alexander City, Central Alabama, part of the Radio Alabama group. Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, we always love having you on here because you from Union Point, Georgia, the best people in Georgia come from the smallest towns. At least when they win national championships at Georgia. Most recently, Stetson Bennett, the fourth from Blackshear. But let's talk some college football and your thoughts on what's going on with you, and we'll take it from there. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm just glad that we're closing in on it. Okay, you know, when you're in July, you think it's never going to get here.
Yeah,
August is the longest month in history every year. And now we can see it. We're not playing this Saturday, but we've got games a week from Saturday. So that's number one. Number two, this is, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and I tell you, there are more good storylines in college football and specifically the SEC than I've seen in a long, long time. So it's going to be a lot of fun getting all these questions answered.
You know, one thing that I noticed, and I was with some former players that played in the SEC over the weekend fishing. And we were joking around. I mean, they're 40, 41 years old and played in the SEC and played some NFL football. And we were talking about practice, how you used to be able to go to practice and you could get observations and you would read what you had written or Philip Marshall or John Pruitt or Furman Bisher or Jesse Outler, whoever. And now it's not. And this player made a great comment. He said, you know, the coaches are seeing ghosts now. But what I think is happening, I think the fans, and Buddy Martin brought this up, who owns college football? It's the fans. And I love what you're bringing, Tony, with what you do. And that is, we love the game and all this other stuff is there, but the game's as good as it's ever been. And you're right. There are a ton of storylines out there to talk about. My favorite from last year had to be Stetson Bennett the fourth. That's the one that makes you love college football.
Well, a couple of stories about Stetson. I think I've mentioned to you before, I've got three of my fraternity brothers. We go to the Georgia-Florida game every year together, and we have a great time. We're there 4 or 5 days, like a lot of people. And we were tailgating this at the Georgia-Florida game last season, and I'm talking, and a guy walks up. He's obviously a Georgia fan with his hat and his shirt and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He said, well, Tony, he said, you do know that there is no way we can win a national championship with Stetson Bennett as our quarterback. I said, dude, I don't know that at all. And so I proceeded to tell him, you got to judge a guy on what he does on the field. So that's number one. Number two, in June, I spoke to a group from the University of Georgia College of Business, very well-respected group. All these are young graduates. Yeah. And I give my little talk and all that stuff. And the third question of the Q&A is, well, Tony, you know that Stetson Bennett is not going to be our quarterback all year, even if he stays healthy. And I just went over and beat my head on the table for a few minutes. The point that you make, watching this guy play and defy, because now he's done it, and now people say, well, there's no, okay, he was doing that with smoke and mirrors. There's no way he can do it again. And so I think it's going to be fun watching him try.
Yeah, and he may be asked to win some games this year, whereas last year that defense was backing him up. But I believe in him. I believe in people, and I think he's why, again, we love college football, because he's a guy that, you know, maybe he makes it in the NFL. I mean, whatever, he's going to be successful in whatever he does. because Stetson Bennett, after being told maybe go do something else, he left Georgia. He came back again. Go do something else. You're fourth or fifth on the depth chart, but Stetson Bennett finds excuses to win, and that's what I love about him. And he's just, all the, what, Tony, Gandhi said it best. I'll never allow other people to walk through my mind with their dirty feet.
Right.
Stetson Bennett lives that, doesn't he?
You don't get, other people don't get to define who you are. You get to define who you are, and you have opportunities. The big turnover against Alabama in the national championship game. A lot of guys would have said, and to give Georgia a lot of credit, a lot of teams would have said, well, let's just back off and not be so aggressive on offense, and let's let the defense win it for us. No, they kept staying aggressive, and that's a credit to Todd Monken and the Georgia coaching staff. Yeah.
Well, he's my mad Italian player of the year in college football. That's what we love about it. But Jimmy Hodge jumping here with Tony Barnhart and Mr. College Football.
Well, Tony, last time we were talking about the Georgia-Florida game and being played in Jacksonville. We had a development over the last week. Georgia announced that they were going to exercise their option on whether or not they were going to use that game, since they will be the home team, to have recruits there. They don't have to, make a decision on it until, probably right up until game time. So I found that interesting. And obviously, if Georgia chooses to bring recruits to the game, since Florida will be the home team next year, I'm sure they will follow suit. And then the contract, ends, I think you mentioned it earlier, after the 2023 game, with an option to extend through 2025. And I was just curious if, there have been any developments on that. I'm sure they're probably already having discussions on it, but I kind of feel like you do. I think it will remain in Jacksonville. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then we just had some news, maybe yesterday, that the national championship game will be played in Atlanta in 2025, and then 2024, 2025, and then it'll be Miami in 2026. So again, even though we're not playing football yet, we're starting to have some news, and also the development in Baton Rouge that Myles Garrett has announced his retirement from football, and it's going to be, a 2-quarterback race there now between Jaden Daniels, the transfer from Arizona State, and Garrett Nussmeier.
Well, let's start with the Georgia-Florida game. That was the issue that Kirby Smart raised. He says, "Look, you want me to recruit at this level? We've done that, but it would be a lot easier if we didn't have to. If we could recruit for the Georgia-Florida game, which is our biggest game." And so it looks like this is a compromise, detente. They've come up with an idea that allows Kirby Smart to recruit, which I understand, but allows the Georgia people to keep the traditions and all that is going on. As far as Atlanta getting the national championship game, obviously I can't possibly be objective on that issue, because I think Atlanta's the best place to have it. Always did, because of the infrastructure. Hey, guys, if predictions are correct and Alabama and Georgia end up playing again for the national championship, they got to go all the way out to LA to play in SoFi Stadium. You think they'd like to play that game in Atlanta, which they did back in 2017? But I think it's a credit to Atlanta, the fact that it's the first city to host the national championship game for the second time. Miami, you remember, was supposed to do it in the COVID year. They did it, but it was way scaled back, which is why they're getting another shot. So I think that's cool. The Miles Brennan thing, that is it's not a tragedy, because there are too many other important things going on in the world, but it's just, it breaks your heart for the kid. He kept coming back and kept coming back. And just when he thought he was going to be the starting quarterback, some cat named Joe Burrow shows up, and he's pretty good. So they got to play him. And then last year he gets hurt again. And so it's tough that he never really got that chance. But Jaden Daniels, listen, they brought Jaden Daniels, who started 29 games at Arizona State. They brought him there for a reason. And I think he was going to end up being the guy all along. But it's hard to see. It's disappointing to see Miles Brennan's career end like this.
Yeah. Tony, talk about what you personally, I saw where you're not going to be on the SEC network, but you're going to start a podcast, Mr. College Football and Friends. Let's talk about what you personally are doing, because we appreciate beyond measure what you do for college football. You're just one of the great people, one of the just great voices for college football. We also appreciate you taking time to join us on Sidelines, and we want to help you. So let people know where you're going.
Well, I had 8 wonderful years with the SEC Network. I was there on the day it was launched. I was in Starkville, Mississippi, August 14, 2014.
I remember it.
Interviewed Dak Prescott before he was Dak Prescott. Everybody knew how good he was.
Yeah.
So it was 8 wonderful years. Everything in television comes to an end, and my contract came to an end, and I'm just thrilled to get the 8 years I did. Our website, we've had this website, me and 3 of my old newspaper buddies, we have a combined 151 years of newspaper experience. We started this website about 5 years ago and been doing it, but we're going to ramp up a little bit. And as you mentioned, we're going to start the podcast. If we can get the technical glitches all worked out, we're going to do that. And we've got one guy in Chicago, one guy in New Jersey, one guy in Boston, and I'm in Atlanta. And we cover these are guys, very well-respected newspaper guys over their careers, Chicago Sun-Times, Dallas Morning News, and I, of course, work for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The website is si.com. We are under the Sports Illustrated umbrella, which is something we enjoy. That's really helped us. So we are si.com/college singular /TMG. TMG stands for the media guides. We want you to come to our site. We want to guide you through our knowledge of college football. And in addition to that, we're going to try to add a podcast once a week. And we are working to get the kinks out of that. So we're excited. I'm going to be as busy as I want to be, which is kind of where I am in my life and career. And Mrs. Barnhart says, well, you got to get out of the house. You got to do something. So I think I'm going to be pretty busy.
I bet you are. Hey, Norman Jetmanson really enjoyed getting to see you at the Cobb Film Festival weekend before last about Sewanee 1899 Unrivaled. Your contributions to that, again, that's just the way you are. What Luke Bryan wrote that song, Most People Are Good. He's talking about you because you made such a difference. He raved about you spending about 5 hours one day at your house to help him make that documentary. What about your role with CBS? We've grown up watching you on CBS College Football Saturdays. I know the SEC and the CBS are going to go different ways here next year, but will you still be there?
No, I won't be there. But the way that all played out is I was with CBS for 8 years.
Yeah.
Doing stuff on the CBS Sports Network. Went to New York, had a show on the cable side of things. I would do 5 or 6 in-studio appearances with Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman. That was just a wonderful time and all that. But when the SEC Network came along, I had to make a choice. And obviously, given my background, I had to go with the SEC Network. And again, we were there for 8 wonderful years. So now now basically what we will do, I do a show with Doug Matthews in Nashville, about a 2-hour show on Saturdays at 10 o'clock Eastern time. I've been doing that a long time. Doug and I have a tremendous amount of fun doing that show. So basically it'll be the website and that's Saturday show and the podcast on the website.
Okay. Well, Tony, I know you mentioned that you've got to get off early today at 20 after. So we're about to go to the break, but I was going to say the most important thing with college football is the writers, the people like you that go out and find the stories. So it sounds to me like as great as it's been, it's about to get a lot better.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to write 3 times a week. We'll do our pick 6 thing on Fridays. We all of us on the website do our pick 6s. Some of them do it better than others. When I come to picking, I tell people if I knew how to pick football games, I'd be doing something else for a living. Yeah. So I admire the people who know how to do it. On Mondays, I'll be writing about kind of what we learned. I watch a lot of games on Saturday. I don't go to as many games as I used to. And that's by design, because I find I learn a lot more that I can share with my readers by watching a lot of games. So I'll be at a few select games, and it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to it.
Well, listen, Tony Barnhart, thanks so much for joining us. We'll look forward to having you on again here very soon. But I just wanted to make sure people knew how to follow you, keep up with you, because, again, you're the tip of the spear for college football. We need more people like you writing and grinding. You, Lauren Smith, Buddy Martin. That's why we love college football. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Tony, have a great week.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust, and a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with Jimmy Hodge, and Tony had indicated he needed to get off at 20 after, so I had to let him go at the break, and wish we could have been on here longer with him. But, you know, Jimmy, God, it's wild. It's been 8 years since the SEC Network was launched, and it seems like it was last week. And he's talking about interviewing Dak Prescott before he was Dak Prescott. But, you know, the question I would ask LSU people is, now that Miles Brennan is gone from LSU, does that mean that the LSU coaching staff is not going to be getting their meals comped when they go to Owen Brennan's in New Orleans? Because, you know, Miles Brennan is the grandson of Owen Brennan, of Owen Brennan's restaurant there in the French Quarter. And I think they're, you know, one of the most famous restaurants in New Orleans, Jimmy. So he stuck it out 6 years. That kid, it just goes to show why what Stetson Bennett is doing at Georgia is so impressive, because how many times has Georgia brought in a 4 or a 5-star quarterback since Stetson Bennett came to Georgia, and he just keeps hanging in there and fighting. Yet there are some people who are saying, excuse me, Stetson Bennett, how can they do it? I mean, I think this year, in stark contrast to what happened last year, Stetson's going to be asked to win more games, or need to be at another level. But you know what? Guys like him find ways to do it. I'm not saying he's, you know, Peyton Manning or Eli Manning. You know, he's not 6'4" or 6'5". He's 5'10", but he's got something neither one of those guys ever got in college. That's a national championship ring. And don't discount the importance of that. Jimmy?
Well, he's a good college quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're talking about college football. We're not talking about, players' future NFL prospects when we're evaluating players at the college level.
Yeah.
And I think for the majority of college football fans, no matter what school you support, you're always going to remember what they did at the college level, even if you obviously are at a school that produces a lot of NFL players. You want to see all those guys be successful. But I think, from my personal experience, what most fans remember is what those guys did at their school. And, he's, just overcome tremendous odds. And, he makes big plays when you have to make them. And the guy knows how to win. So, no, I don't really understand the concern of Georgia fans. I think maybe this started when during the cocktail party 2 years ago against Florida, when he threw a touchdown pass to, I think, to John Saint to put the Dogs up 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, and both players got injured on that play, and then Stetson tried to continue, but his shoulder was clearly injured. They finally pulled him late in the game.
Yeah.
And then they had an open week, I believe, and then the following game against Mississippi State was when doctors cleared Daniels to play, and he had a 400-yard passing game against State, and then he was the starter the rest of the year, and they went undefeated the rest of the way. And so everybody thought, well, Stetson's done. And then last year, Daniels had his labrum problem, and they didn't know literally each game day until warm-ups whether or not his injury had healed enough to where he'd be able to play. And it turned out he really wasn't able to go for the first month, and Stetson just jumped right in and did a great job and leads them to the national championship. So, so again, I think that's where a lot of that started from, and it's just unfortunate, but this has been going on for decades. The most popular player on any team at the pro or the college level is the backup quarterback, and then a lot of these backup quarterbacks at the college level are 4- and 5-star players or prospects at programs like Georgia. So you're just always going to have that kind of outside noise going on.
Well, you think about in the 4 games that JT Daniels started at the end of the 2020 season. I remember watching Gene Chizik and Chris Doering on SEC Network. And Gene Chizik pointed out, he said, look, as impressive as the stats were, about 1,000 yards passing in those 4 games, don't forget JT Daniels was sacked 10 times in those 4 games. He said, what I worry about with JT Daniels is he's not all that mobile. Stetson Bennett is pretty mobile. I mean, the guy can run and he's got a good arm. So you got to be able to move around. And then it's just really the injuries with JT Daniels. And I look around at quarterbacks, and you look at, you pick the school. Like right now, and we'll talk with Yancy Porter about it in hour number 2, the quarterback battle at Ole Miss. Here comes Jackson Dart from Southern Cal. He's a gunslinger that Lane Kiffin likes, is what Yancy Porter says. Then you got Luke Altmaier, a kid that Ole Miss started recruiting in 8th or 9th grade out of Starkville, Mississippi, home of the Bulldogs. Luke Altmaier had to play in the Sugar Bowl when Matt Corral was injured against Baylor. Baylor completely just shut down Ole Miss in that game. I know Corral was injured, but Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts with that creeper defense, that's good. Now, you say, well, why doesn't everybody run the creeper? It's not that simple. It's not about the matchups. It's about how you match up on the day of the game. Don't ever forget that, because it's true. Shout out to my friend, the late Mark Green. He was so right about that. Stat Tiger and I talk about that a lot. Everybody gets caught up in those matchups. And they also, it's like in sales. You're closing a big deal in business, and the customer has given you the buy signal and told you yes. And some young salesman on your team keeps talking and won't shut up and just keeps rambling on and on and on. And you're looking at him going, nothing more needs to be said. We've sold it. Well, that's what it is with quarterbacks and 4 and 5 star players. Remember, about 3,300 kids will sign Division I scholarships in a given year. 3,300. Okay. 1% of those, okay, do the math, are 5 stars. That's about 33 of them. There are about 350 to 400 who will be rated 4 stars. So let's say it's a great year. You have 433 kids who are 4 stars, and 400 of them are 4 stars. 33 of them are 3 stars or 5 stars. That's 433. So that's almost 2,900 college football players who were coming in as 3 stars, 2 stars, or non-rated. Okay. So you got to be able to develop players. It's no different than you going to Fresh Market, spending $1,000 on groceries, buying halibut, aged Angus, free range chicken. Okay. If you leave it in the back of your truck for a week in August, it doesn't matter, but it won't be developed in the kitchen. Then it gets down to who's in the kitchen, Jimmy or me or Audrey. I mean, we can all cook. Or do you want to have Gordon Ramsay or Wolfgang Puck? That's where development is so important. And you look at schools that struggle. It's because they're not developing their players. And nothing is more hard to manage than a roster full of highly recruited kids. Now they've got NIL deals and they've got their hands out, and they're playing you against other coaches going, look, coach, even though I'm here, I got coaches at other schools telling me they'll put a deal together. Okay. I mean, that's the worst roster you can have. A bunch of just cancers on your team that will metastasize and just destroy your culture. So you got to be careful. And I think the trend that I'm starting to already see, I'm going to go out and predict it. You're going to see a decrease in the number of kids going into the portal. I don't care what anybody tells me. I don't believe it. I think they're starting to already realize it's not going to be that cool. You're free to do a lot of things, but I think the free market will settle this stuff down. Guys have always been transferring. Before the portal, 42% of quarterbacks would end up at a different school than where they signed with out of high school. Okay. That's something to keep in mind. All right. Doug Dean's going to join us here in just a moment from the AU Dose, and looking forward to hearing what he's got to say. But I'm going to tell you, Jimmy, I like 12 of the 14 schools in the SEC have their returning quarterbacks. I mean, their starters are back. What kind of year? Yeah, I mean, Stat Tiger's right. This probably is going to be the greatest offensive year we've ever seen in the SEC. Go back 10 years ago, and now look what the SEC does, throwing the ball. No league in America throws the ball more than the SEC. Jimmy, wouldn't you agree that trend is likely to continue? But then the teams that can do the best job of balancing the run and the pass will probably be the ones that will win the league. If you're throwing the ball 80% of the time, you ain't winning the SEC.
Well, you certainly have to be able to convert third and short, fourth and short, and even the power teams like Alabama had all kinds of trouble in those situations last year. And the offensive line, even at those traditionally strong programs, are having some problems. I mean, and again, Alabama, they had the most highly decorated offensive line recruiting class in modern times last year, and only one of those guys really got any playing time at all, and that was Latham, who played well at guard in the playoff game against Cincinnati. So again, it's just it's not only a struggle getting linemen who are, let's say, accustomed to playing in these spread offensive schemes in which you're having, 4, sometimes 5 wideouts.
Yeah.
And then adjusting to just playing a smash mouth style, because in many cases, if you're running that type of offense, you're only going to be lining up and trying to knock somebody backwards on what I described earlier, 3rd and short, 4th and short situation.
Yeah.
And when you don't do that a lot, you're not as comfortable in your ability to be able to pull that off. So
Jimmy,
I think you do have to have it's a fine line, and you have to have a balance between getting tough yards when you have to.
Yeah, Jimmy, good points. And Doug Dean has joined us down in Birmingham, the Magic City, AU Daily Dose. Doug, man, I'll tell you one thing. You can feel it. College football, it's close. We're talking like Jimmy was just doing. We're talking, and Jimmy, you're right. If you're not butting heads every day in practice, how are you going to get tough? Doug Dean, I know you're tough. I just went fishing with you. And you have the greatest rod I've ever used. I did not have to retie it on Friday a single time. And you know how much I love to redo my hooks when I'm trout fishing. Doug,
well,
you're
good
on a
morning,
roll.
guys. And let's not too quickly skip past the fun that was had in 3 different states last Thursday through Friday. Well, I guess Wednesday afternoon through Saturday morning, and the other guys stuck around. But I'm not going to, Rob, I'm too smart to give away the coordinates for where we had such spectacular rainbow trout fishing.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that won't be the last time I'm back to that. So props to the great Rob Brown for knowing where to go for outdoorsmen. There's something special, and you normally have to go out west, Montana, Wyoming, and places like that to experience 2 to 3 foot gin clear water. And you flip that fly line out there, and you can literally see those chunky 2 to 3 pound rainbows, and you get to watch them first reject your fly because you're an amateur like me, trying to become a journeyman. And then you change some things up. You change the color, you change the fly, how you're working it, and it just unlocks the key, and you get to see their behavior change. Wouldn't it be cool if football worked that way?
Yes.
You could do a visual, I guess that's called film study, right?
Absolutely.
You look for tendencies, and you adapt. And it's the subtle little bitty things like, and I'm probably going too far with this metaphor, fly fishing compared to college football.
No, it makes
sense.
sense.
It's a fact. If you can figure out I call them tells. What is the tell, that little bitty thing that you watch film 1,000 times and finally some player or coach catch? Oh, I saw his right foot is planted just a little outside when it's a pass play. And the same with a defensive back. Does he bite? Does he want to make the big play? And so a double move is going to burn him. It's just a lot of fun. But thank you so much for your hospitality at the Great Cherry Farm in Parkin, Arkansas, Rob.
Hey, and we cut the grass, MJ and I did Sunday, and I mean with the John Deere riding mower, now it looks like Augusta National on the back 9. But yeah, look, man, you're right. The strategy, you got to keep trying. But to watch Duckworth catch 18 rainbow trout on a fly rod, he said for a fly fisherman, that's like catching 200 on a spinning rod. That was awesome.
For me to take a good Bama man fly fishing in a place like that, he's got to be a cool dude and a great fisherman.
Yeah.
And John Duckworth, shout out to our friend Duckworth.
Absolutely.
I'll get him to check the show later and make sure he brags to all his friends that he made it. He got a mention on Sidelines.
That's right.
And by the way, it would be sinful if I didn't acknowledge that I got to share the fly fishing waters of Arkansas, Mammoth Spring, and then up in a part of Missouri that I'm not going to tell anybody about because we don't want the streams crowded with the great Wesley Brett.
Yes, sir.
Former Alabama and New England Patriots offensive lineman. Now, let me just say, I love you, Wesley. It was great getting to catch up on all things, including the political scene coming up with Katie Britt, but who's a shoo-in, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't bet against that little spunky lass. But I would not want to share the canoe with Wesley down those turbulent.
It was
spring
easy. In fact, we're going to a break, but Boyd said it was a flawless day. Wesley caught 41 trout Saturday. I mean, the guy's a winner.
That big 6'5" whatever frame stabilized that canoe. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We'll be right back with more after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Doug, I tell you what, they went out on the river Saturday and got it. But yeah, Wesley's very agile. 6'8", man. He's in great shape. But tell you one thing, man, I'm ready to get back up there. But I will say another one. Auburn had that scrimmage Saturday, and it's things aren't always like they appear, are they?
Yeah, let's get in. And by the way, Wesley Britt, you won't meet a classier, nicer dude than that. That was a lot of fun getting to know one of the legends who got to play in the league. But back to quick look back to Auburn's Saturday night scrimmage. This is a class. This time of year, it's is glass half full or half empty as you want it to be. Mm-hmm. You can paint the narrative either way, but I don't want to be found guilty of excessive rosiness. I think it's concerning, not severely concerning, but mildly concerning that there is not the linear path of Zach Calzada coming in and dominating and, being named the starter really early in camp and then getting 80% of the reps. In fact, it was one scrimmage, but TJ Finley, who's been around a year, and he's worked on his flaws from all reports, but he probably performed the best. I don't know about dramatically best, but looked more in command of what he was doing in the Saturday scrimmage. And frankly, it was fair or unfair, that did not play well in Lee County with some segment of Auburn fans. And I think that's simple. It's not that there's hate for Finley. We like any QB who can get the job done and win games. But I think we just, we drink the Kool-Aid, and when you go get a guy, you let Bo Nix go. Now, there's probably more to that story than we know, but each side has a story to it, and wish Bo Nix well at Oregon. But when you let a veteran like Nix go, warts and all, and you go get Zach Calzada, the feeling is he's going to really be invested in. He'll be ready. He's got a great arm. But he just struggled Saturday in the scrimmage, whereas Finley looked more in control. Both threw for a touchdown pass. But Calzada just made a couple of throws that looked inaccurate and weird. His footwork needs some help. So he may be showing the signs of not playing at all in spring, and it's early in camp. But I would remind listeners, especially of the orange and blue persuasion, you only have to go back to 2010 and when one of the early scrimmages, the reports coming, quote, reliable reports coming out of the Auburn scrimmage were that Cam Newton really struggled to throw the ball, and who was it, Barrett Trotter looked like the clear-cut leader to start as Auburn quarterback.
Yeah.
That'll get you fired, won't it, Rob? You bench Cam Newton. that season, only to find out later that he was Heisman caliber.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember talking to one of the Auburn players' mothers before the Arkansas State game, the first time we ever saw Cam Newton play. And she said, in practice that he was just a beast. He was 6'6", 250 pounds, but his legs would just hit you in the helmet when he get that head of steam going. And Auburn Gus did not ever let him go live, I don't think, in a scrimmage. So, you found out that first night when he rushed for 171 yards. But you know what? You got to get them out there, and very rarely, if ever anymore, does anyone go live with their quarterbacks.
Can I hit a couple other highlights?
Absolutely.
And I want to hear Jimmy's take if he got any reports, because my friends of the Crimson Persuasion, to their credit, are good at rival intel. But a concern, we've talked about it on the show, coming into fall camp was, we know that what Tank Bigsby can do, and he reportedly has made a next step with Cadillac Williams coaching. We know what Jarquez Hunter's capable of, and a weight room beast. Then this Damari Austin, this kid from Atlanta area, is really showed out. He busted one for an impressive touchdown, showing a lot of instinctive running. But we were worried about the wide receiver room, and you heard it here, maybe not first if you've had Jason Caldwell on or others, but make a note. You're going to hear the name Camden Brown early and often this season as one of the SEC's up-and-coming wide receivers. The kid is just as a true freshman. He is dominating scrimmage drills, and they're going to have a hard time keeping him out of the starting rotation, which is amazing for a freshman. Meanwhile, you've got other receivers who have stepped forward, and even discounting for the fact that it's just a scrimmage and the coaches control things, it's scripted. I think the wide receiver room is going to, within a couple or three games, prove to be at least not a liability, and potentially by mid-season a strength that whoever the starting QB is has an opportunity to go to and get and back defenses out of the box, which is a problem we had last year when, we became pretty predictable and easy to defend, and that's why they struggled in the last half of the season. And secondly, defensive line is all that they were advertised, deep and talented, and that's going to be a strength along with the secondary. My worry at the moment is beyond Owen Papeau and maybe Wesley Steiner, linebacker. We just can't afford injuries there. They need to build some depth, quality depth, and we're definitely going to miss Zacoby McClain, number 9, hawking things on the defensive side. So a surprising outcome at QB from Saturday night, but it's one scrimmage in. And remember, Auburn people, there's not a 2-week deadline for Harsin and Keyshaw to have this figured out. We play Mercer and San Jose State the first 2 games, but you better, by the Mercer game maybe, you better have a dialed-in starter and be giving most of the reps and attention to polishing that QB1.
Yeah, and, it's interesting. Coy Moore, transfer wide receiver from LSU. He's from Ponchatoula, Louisiana. He's a sophomore. TJ Finley's a junior. They were teammates in high school. So wonder what kind of chemistry might develop there. And that's something to think about. But TJ Finley is getting better. He's been through spring practice. Calzada did not go through spring practice. Robbie Ashford is, the dual threat guy. But I think your takeaway from all this is you still got time, and there's no need to rush something that you have time to figure out. And again, if Auburn people would not continue to make it a habit to fall for every salacious rumor put out, typically by rival schools. Auburn fan P.T. Barnum knew what he was talking about. He was talking about Auburn fans falling for all these rumors. Auburn eats its own worse than any fan base I've ever seen. And if Auburn would worry about making Auburn better and not worry about what their rivals are saying about them, Auburn would be a superpower.
It's a fact. We've met the enemy, and sometimes it's us.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Doug,
Jimmy, are you hearing anything that would put a different spin on things coming out of Auburn fall camp?
Well, the first thing I wanted to know was, when was their first day in pads? I heard it was Friday, according to SEC Network, when I was watching some episodes last week. But I just wanted to find out from you guys when their first day in pads was.
I apologize. I'd have to confirm that, and I'll text Rob when we hang up and confirm it.
Well, I thought, my understanding was it was Friday, and with that in mind, I was thinking to myself, there's no way they're going to have a scrimmage before, today or maybe Monday. And to hear that it was on Saturday, if their first day in pads was on Friday, I mean, I was wondering myself.
You expect it to be messy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just a totally different ball game when you make that transition from practicing in shells to full pads.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to kind of get that squared away.
Now, wait a minute, Jimmy. Hold on a minute. You mean as fans, even analysts, we're not allowed to completely flip out about the first scrimmage?
Well, it just depends where you're at. Certain schools, handle that stuff differently than others. But
that is true.
So, because I was pretty sure that Auburn, I think, was one of 3 schools that had their first practice day in pads on Friday, because there were 3 schools that started on Monday, Vandy being one of them, because obviously they play the early game a week from Saturday out at Hawaii, and then Georgia, Alabama, I know, and one other school were on Wednesday, but they had the entire kind of week showing there by day on the screen, and I was pretty sure Auburn was slated for Friday. So my thought was, well, if their first day in practice in pads is Friday, that they would have that first scrimmage on maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, and then have the final one maybe a week later, to give them at least 10 days before the Mercer game, to get the guys that they think they're going to be working with mostly, ready for the opener. So it was really surprising to me. As a matter of fact, I thought it was kind of a stretch for Alabama with their first practice in pads on Wednesday. That was kind of stretching it pretty close to scrimmage on Saturday, but that's just always been kind of their tradition, to have the first one on Saturday, then their final one the next Saturday, and then evaluate the film and have almost 2 weeks to concentrate on the opener. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, you don't know. Maybe, sorry if I walked on you. Coach Harsin, right around next game I coach or practice will be my first, but Carson's logic, if there was logic to it, may have been, I'm going to go, we know it's going to be messy, but I want to get live bullets flying with these kids, and I want to get a lot of film captured, and that will enhance how we can individually coach players this early in fall camp. I'm reaching here, but that would be a potential point of view, and that's a good reason to close the practice, because you don't necessarily need reports going out with live, beat writers saying, boy, they looked ugly on the O-line, or the Auburn Tank Bigsby struggled, or the quarterbacks stink. So I'll give him a little bit of the doubt. The other intel, Rob and Jimmy, that I would share, and it's not breaking yet, so I'm hoping that there's some inaccuracy to it, but Auburn may be without the services of veteran, like 8-year starting center Nick Brahms. Word is that, he may be having to evaluate, with all he's gone through repairing those knees, and that he's got a bright, promising career as a pilot, a commercial pilot, probably with Delta. He might be having to think about hanging up the cleats, just because if you keep pushing it, it might mean that you're prematurely getting a knee replacement. You don't need that at his age. So keep an eye on that breaking news, and I guess it would be who's anybody's guess, counsel or maybe a kid, Tate Johnson, that would have to step in and step up in a hurry.
That's the center position. Wow, because that's your quarterback or your offensive line. And Brahms has been there for a long time, so he's in a precarious situation right now. And I, when you're hearing comments like what you just said, that's worrisome. I mean, worry's a waste of time, but you got to always have several guys ready to go.
Well, Rob, was it 98? The faded year for Terry Bowden that he didn't finish the season coaching. I think Auburn went through 5 centers due to injury that year.
Yeah, it was that was let's just say about as rough as I've ever seen, and that was, holy cow, you don't want to go through that. And
no.
Auburn, that's a concern.
Injuries are part of almost every team deals with them, and you got to build depth to deal with. And if I'm right, if that news is right about Nick Brahms, then, and to an extent, Auburn has only itself to blame for going to arguably 3 years of just really miserable offensive line recruiting, notwithstanding, as Jason Caldwell has aptly pointed out, there's just a scarcity of true SEC caliber O-linemen to even go out and recruit, even if you're Alabama or Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. We got about 2.5 minutes before we have to take the break. But look, Doug, kind of lay it out there for people with Auburn on the defensive line. That's 7 guys, maybe 8 go into the portal, some big names, and they're still deep on the defensive line. That's incredible.
Well, and again, just as I counseled for discounting, gloomy reports about the QB performance at one scrimmage in, like Jimmy said, it may have only been in pads for a day, so you get what you get. But neither should I be, declare a victory on this D-line before they go up against some talent, the Penn State and an LSU offense. But I think Kevin Steele probably gets one more year of due credit for understanding roster management and recruiting and having a plan. And then, but there's a kid, Mba, that I think he grew up in France. This kid is huge. He's a little raw, but between him and of course Colby Wooden and Derek Hall, and I'm told that about 8 guys that are ready to go. They need more. They need the rest of fall camp, but we should, barring injury, Auburn should be the bell cow of our whole team. Possibly will be this defensive front, and there's a high correlation. Am I right, Jimmy? High correlation between teams that win SEC championships and how strong and elite their defensive front is. I'm not saying Auburn is poised to, contend for the SEC this year, but I am saying if you want to build a team, you need to start in the trenches there.
Yeah. Without it, you got no chance. We got about 45 seconds, and I will say, I mean, there are about 8 teams in the country every year that have really good depth, quality depth on the defensive front. Auburn's typically one of them, but they damn sure don't have the offensive line. But the offensive line, the fact that they're a lot older, I hope that helps, Doug. I mean, but man,
either they're old and never got good, or they're going to be experienced and help us.
Yeah, and hopefully it's that they've gained experience. And you got to love a guy like Austin Troxell, a 9th-year senior who's been there for a long time. But Doug, listen, man, appreciate awesome call. I'm ready to go fishing with you again. We're going to take a break. Be right back with Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. With
Connor O'Gara, he's a fine man.
He is. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, great stuff there with Doug Dean down in Birmingham, AU Dose. And Jimmy, we got about 3 minutes before Connor O'Gara joins us from Saturday Down South via StreamYard. And again, we're broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Great folks over here. If you're interested in a trade-in, again, these values are still holding strong, probably the best in 20 years. I was talking with the folks here about can't get a Land Cruiser in the States anymore, Toyota Land Cruiser. Most people I know that have them are 25 and 30 years old. They just don't want to get rid of them. But the Toyota Sequoia, I looked at that. Holy shnikes. There's a waiting list, but you can get on that list to get the Sequoia. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Check them out on the website. They deliver anywhere. It's worth the effort. RedRiverFordToyota.com. And Gateway Tire and Service Centers, we go the distance for our customers and the communities where we do business, and make an effort to reforest Mississippi. Plant trees on your private land, on your home residence, in your yard, in the medians, along the highways. Reforest Mississippi and the South. It's good for everybody. And support the Boy Scouts of America. Taking kids out camping, learning about hunting and fishing, surviving. Man up. We're going to remasculate America. That's one of our missions, okay? College football, we are all about it. Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee, the Caney Fork, the Johns River, down in Florida. Great bass fishing down there. Those Florida bass people talk about, that's where you catch them. But we got them up here too, so not unusual. But another thing about college football, Jimmy, what Doug said, maybe you go in there the second or third day in pads, but before Connor comes on, and I'll give you the Jimmy signal when he comes on, because that means we got to go to Connor, but that is kind of aggressive, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was just watching the SEC Network last week, and that's when I saw it. And I goes, wow, that's kind of late. And but there were, I think, two other schools. I think A&M was another school that went had their first practice in pads on Friday. Now, maybe that chart was wrong, but unless my eyesight's completely gone,
it's not.
I was pretty sure they were. Their first practice in pads was Friday. So again, everybody's got different reasons for everything, but I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw on the screen. I'm sure you'll have somebody that'll be able to tell you the actual day that they did start in pads. So,
well, it's a lot different. I mean, and now you don't do 3-a-days. There's a lot of things that you don't do. Connor O'Gara is on with us right now. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South in Orlando. Man, college football. And Connor, thank you for taking time to join us on Sidelines. Your observations, as we were just talking about Auburn, we think they didn't put the pads on till Friday, and they had a scrimmage Saturday. That's pretty quick transition. I mean, that's like living in the median on Interstate 95. You better pull out of your driveway doing about 105.
That's kind of what it's going to need to be this year, right? If you've got a coach on the hot seat, and I think Brian Harsin is, despite the fact that he's getting a standing ovation at at Auburn basketball game, despite the fact that I think he's done everything in his power to address this admittedly awkward situation head on since this coup was organized in February. You've got to hit the ground running like that. That's what it's going to take with a schedule like this. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
Yeah. And you think about it, looking around the SEC, Florida just opened up the Heavener Center. That's about $100 million football only facility. Man, have you seen a coach who is as big on details as Billy Napier? Maybe Nick Saban comes to mind.
Yeah, the Saban Dabo disciple is an interesting way to describe Billy Napier. Yeah. And if he succeeds at Florida long term, which I believe he will, then we'll go back to that. And it's not a given that a Saban disciple is going to succeed. Lord knows the Will Muschamp's of the world have collected a lot of money based on their inability to succeed. And I think that Billy Napier brings something different to the table. And what I like about him is that he was fired, is that he was told as a young hotshot offensive coordinator, you're not good enough and you need to adjust if you're going to have a career in this field. And he went through the Saban program, the Saban rehab for coaches program with the analyst deal. He was one of the first to do that. And I just love the attention to detail because Florida's been missing that. And I've had people tell me, look, the way that he operates and the way that he organizes his practices is so different than the previous regime. And there's not wasted time. There's not wasted space. There's a support staff that is different, that is more respected in that locker room in year one than some of the coaches that they had in year 4 last year. And so while I'm not necessarily sitting here saying that I think Billy Napier is going to lead Florida to a New Year's Six Bowl in year 1, I don't think they're going to be on the level of Georgia or anything like that. But long term, you better be buying that stock now because there's a lot of optimism about what he's been doing.
Yeah, and look what he's been doing in recruiting, which is critical. Florida State facilities, way down. And that's one of probably the biggest reasons Jimbo Fisher went to A&M. Miami, their facilities, way down. And they're not getting the money from the ACC. It's not even close to what the SEC will get when Oklahoma and Texas come in. Yet, recruiting-wise, Florida's got work to do. Let's switch gears. I want to head up to Knoxville. A lot of people are high on Tennessee. I am. I like Josh Heupel as a coach. You watched him at Central Florida up close and personal there. I don't know if you went to many games at the Bounce House or not, but Gus is there now. What is it about Heupel you're seeing that he's improved upon that he didn't do so much at Central Florida? Because he's playing a much tougher schedule, and he has to do it.
Yeah, I think the jury's still out on whether or not he's going to be able to handle the ebbs and flows of life on Rocky Top. And Lord knows that many a coach who we thought were going to be able to weather the storm there, Jeremy Pruitt, Butch Jones being the last two, Lane Kiffin being another one. You think that they're going to be able to handle these certain ups and downs, and you see kind of what it's like when things go south, and it goes south in a hurry. Now, what I think Josh Heupel has brought to Tennessee is something that I didn't think he'd be able to bring as immediate as he did, and that was an offensive floor that was incredibly high. Think about all the turnover that they had in the Jeremy Pruitt fallout and all those different guys that they had leaving via the transfer portal. It was a one-way street out the door. Meanwhile, though, one of the few that did come in and was committed to the previous regime was Hendon Hooker. And Hendon Hooker steps into that role. And as somebody who came from Virginia Tech and had a really tough up and down career with the health issues he dealt with in 2020, steps into that offense after Joe Milton can't succeed and leads him to a top 10 offense. That's all Josh Heupel has done the last 4 years is crank out top 10 offenses. And so that's why I have more confidence in Tennessee this year. I know what they are offensively. I know they're going to have one of the probably 10 to 15 best running games in the country. I think Hendon Hooker is one of the 10 best quarterbacks returning in college football. I love Cedric Tillman, and I think that they're going to be able to put up a ton of points. I don't know if they're going to stop a soul on defense, but I was one of those people that was surprised to see that they weren't in the preseason AP top 25. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt there, and I think they're more established and more proven than some that made the field.
Yeah. Another one, John Calipari. We're a basketball school. Now, and I've been saying this with Kentucky, their football program will get where they want it to get when their fans start getting as mad about a football loss as they do a basketball loss. Now, Calipari makes those comments, and there's some kickback there. But what he ought to be saying is, hey, man, we got great basketball, and now we got great football. I don't see that being a problem between those two coaches, but Mark Stoops has really rattled a lot of cages up there of the old guard, hadn't he?
Yeah, and I think that there's a lack of self-awareness from John Calipari when making these comments that he did to The Athletic last week, and the way that it came off to Mark Stoops is, man, I'm one win away from Bear Bryant from tying the all-time wins list at Kentucky. I've been here. This will be my 10th season. I took this program to 2 winning seasons in SEC play, something that hadn't happened since the Jimmy Carter administration.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Kentucky ends up in the preseason AP top 25, something that also hadn't happened since the Jimmy Carter administration. You're talking about a program that was not just there on third base, the way that Stoops talked about, the way that he made the dig at Cal, talking about the basketball program.
Yep.
And you have to respect the job that he has done. And so I had no problem with him responding the way that he did, considering that Cal is all about recruiting, right? He's all about recruiting. That's the biggest thing in the world. He's trying to get the new facility, the new indoor facility. And that's why he made the comments that he did, talking about why we need this for Kentucky, when it's like, well, just don't lose to St. Peter's, and maybe you'll have a little bit of a different argument to make, and not be a team that's fighting for a 1 seed coming into the NCAA tournament and then puke on your shoes the way that you did. Meanwhile, Mark Stoops just puts his head down, goes to work, and elevates the floor of a program that a lot of people had kind of left for dead. They were dead last in the SEC when he took over. I mean, they were behind Vandy because James Franklin was at Vandy when Mark Stoops took over.
Right.
And now you're talking about a situation that is so vastly different. So I give him credit for stepping up and saying, no, I'm not going to let you say that we're a basketball school, even though historically they are. I still think that what they've been able to change is the culture, and why Kentucky fans are now willing to go to bat for Stoops. And he has a much higher approval rating in Lexington than John Calipari right now. It's not even close.
Yeah. Great description, because I agree. And this is year 10, and Mama Stoops, after the next win by Mark Stoops, to be the all-time winningest coach at Kentucky, to break Coach Bryant's record. And also her other son, Bobby Stoops, former Oklahoma coach, is the winningest coach at Oklahoma. What other mother in America can go to bed saying, I've got 2 sons that are the winningest coaches at Kentucky and Oklahoma in their football history? Jimmy?
Mrs. Harbaugh probably feels similarly about that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. You're right.
It's amazing. Jimmy, jump in here. Jimmy, okay. I think Jimmy was there. Jimmy, are you there? Okay. Well, look, Connor, when I think about what's going on with college football in general, we saw last week the renegotiation of the contracts with CBS, the Big Ten, Fox Sports, ESPN. What's going on with that? Is the SEC losing anything if the Big Ten starts carrying CBS starts carrying the Big Ten game of the week?
Well, I mean, the SEC on CBS has been the sound that so many of us have grown to know, grown to love, and that's going to be no more. I mean, that's going to be no more in a very short period of time here. And what the Big Ten is attempting to do is exist and grow and have a big game feel without the presence of ESPN. Now, there are a lot of questions about that moving forward, and it kind of sets up ESPN, which, of course, has the exclusive rights to the college football playoff right now. I imagine that contract will be split in 2026 if and when expansion happens, and it'll be between ESPN and Fox. But right now, ESPN is going to be in this spot where everybody's going to say, hey, they're not giving the Big Ten love here. Oh, the ESPN hates the Big Ten there, even though they've been in business with them for decades. And so that's what's interesting about these media contracts. And what's going to be weird is hearing, I don't know if they're going to keep the SEC on CBS Music, but seeing a Big Ten game after that. And instead, the SEC is strictly on ESPN, ABC airwaves. And so that'll be coming real soon here, and it's going to be an adjustment for college football, and just kind of a sign of the times. Everything seems to be changing in the latter half of this decade.
Yeah, it does. But again, the SEC is going to end up having Texas and Oklahoma come in the league, and that's going to be even more money. People are talking $80 to $100 million a year. That is nuts. But I want to switch over to the West and the SEC. Miles Brennan out. He wasn't in the picture, according to what Brian Kelly told him. Brian Kelly, I think, will be successful. Jimmy's right. I mean, he'll probably win a couple of national championships at LSU with the talent that he's got there. Jimbo Fisher, what do you see as the story there? Jimbo Fisher had Jameis Winston, and Jameis Winston was 2 great years. After he left, he really hadn't been able to catch that magic with a quarterback. How long will Texas A&M people put up with 4 losses and not, winning and going to Atlanta?
Well, there are 2 different questions. One is, what is Jimbo Fisher's place as an elite coach and as an elite offensive mind in this sport? Which I agree, and not enough people are questioning. Not enough people point to the fact that Jimbo Fisher hasn't had an all-SEC quarterback since Jameis Winston. He hasn't had a top 30 passing offense since Jameis Winston. I mean, they've had, in Jimbo Fisher's entire time as a head coach, he's only had 3 receivers drafted, and Kelvin Benjamin was the only one that was drafted in the first 2 days. That's a question about the passing game, right? And even though he's got this list of quarterbacks, and Rick talks about EJ Manuel, Christian Ponder, Kellen Mond, these guys that he's been able to get drafted, it still doesn't necessarily translate into that success. And so now the question moving forward is, all right, well, what is Jimbo Fisher going to do from an offensive standpoint? Because you would think he's got a pretty favorable situation in some ways this year. Haynes King, a guy entering year 3, Max Johnson, also a guy entering year 3. But Max Johnson, maybe some limited upside, the most casual 27-6 TD-INT ratio in the history of college football he posted last year. But Jimbo Fisher's not getting fired. All right, let's make no mistake about it. A&M fans can get frustrated. They'll get frustrated if they got another 8-4 season. Their championship window is 2023, 2024. If you're looking up at 2025, at the end of 2025, and you're an A&M fan, you realize your team still has not played in a conference championship game, which they have not done in the 21st century. You're looking at those buyout numbers, which I've got sitting right here, right in front of me. I keep this close by. Yes, that's an Iowa notepad, just because that's what they send to the writers of the FWAA. Jimbo Fisher, if you want to pay him less than $50 million to go away, you got to wait until 2026. And that number drops to a whopping $48,750,000. That's after 2026. If you want to fire Jimbo Fisher, they're banking on him being the coach of the decade and never having to look at those buyout numbers, because they're insane. And if, by the way, if he succeeds and if he does win a division title, just win a division title, he's going to get an extension. And those numbers are only going to get even more skewed. A&M fans are desperate. Van Lathan of The Ringer put it best on my airwaves on Saturday Down South podcast. Jimbo Fisher has to win a national title. He just has to. That's not happening this year. Might not happen next year, but one would think if he's ever going to make good on that contract, that's exactly what he needs to be able to do.
Yeah, and look, we're going to take a break. Can you stay with us for a few more minutes after the break? Because I know Jimmy wants to get on. We lost him there for a minute, but you're right. The Jimbo Fisher story, it's like you just keep A&M. If he wins just enough, they'll have to keep upping the ante, and they're going to just get sucked in for even more money. And what are you getting for it? We'll be right back to Ask Connor O'Gara after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Jimmy back with us. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, a few more minutes. And Jimmy, we were just talking about the Texas A&M situation with Jimbo Fisher, and it's about quarterback play, and he just has not had the elite ones. But man, A&M, their fans, this is year 5, and we talk about it a lot. But everybody's saying that's the sleeping giant, the number 1 rated recruiting class. There's so many storylines on A&M. They've got the commitment, they've got everything. But do you see a superstar quarterback that's going to lead them to a national title this year, along the line of what Connor O'Gara just said?
Well, no, I don't. But you would not renegotiate his contract in mid-season last year if you didn't plan on him being the coach for a long time. I mean, they tore that original 10-year, $75 million deal up and replaced it with I think a 10-year, $95 million deal. So he's not going anywhere. Having lived in Texas, my experience with A&M fans is, now it's different that they're in the SEC now because they're exposed to fan bases that are much more demanding from a conference-wide standpoint than you see in the Big 12. But still, I think they've kind of caught on to that in regard to having high expectations there. But at the end of the day, though, they end up kind of settling down. But again, you don't bring a coach in of that stature and pay him that kind of money, without expecting, if you're not able to win championships, at least be on the doorstep. And you got to keep in mind, I mean, this is an era where you have the greatest college football coach of all time who's had Alabama on probably the most dominant 15-year run in college football history. And it's awfully hard to squeeze into that limelight there. So, there's other things to be considered. And Nick Saban's gotten a lot of coaches fired. So it's not like there's one or two coaches that are having to deal with the obstacle of, beating Nick Saban on a regular basis, But the quarterback situation, we all know, is the most important position in college football. I mean, if you don't have a quarterback that is, a turnover free, then, or at least you keep the turnovers to a minimum, you're really going to struggle in this league. And that's what A&M is searching to try to do. I mean, Kellen Mond was a 4-year starter, but still, he had moments where he looked great, and then there were times it looked like he never practiced before.
Yeah.
So, it's that quarterback position that you got to find a way to get a guy that has great talent, playmaking ability, but also he doesn't turn the ball over much. And those guys aren't as easy to find as you think.
Yeah, you're right. And Connor, your description of A&M, it's not they're going to get rid of Jimbo. I don't think you're saying that. It's just that how much, money is it going to cost them? Because if he wins just enough, there's the renegotiation of the contract. All right. I want your thoughts now. Arkansas, Sam Pittman, he's doing something at Arkansas. He's building, he's bringing in coaches that know the deep South. What's the ceiling for Sam Pittman at Arkansas, given NIL and the portal that he can work with?
I don't know that it's fair to say that Arkansas has a 10-win ceiling every single year, just because nobody steps into the SEC West and consistently wins 10 games unless you're Alabama. I mean, even LSU had a 4-year stretch in which they didn't win 10 games once. Yeah. And I think that there's a really difficult task ahead to be able to sustain New Year's Six Bowl level competitiveness every single year. But I love the staff that he's put together. I love the fact that he has 2 coordinators who truly believe in him, and Barry Odom and Kendall Briles. And that's part of why they've been able to get this thing off and running so quickly. Now, as it relates to this year, I think the big question with them is, can they find that Treylon Burks replacement, and not necessarily in the form of one guy, but multiple guys? Can Jaden Hazelwood, the transfer from Oklahoma, the former 5-star, Matt Landers, the former Georgia receiver who was at Toledo last year, can he stretch the field for them? Xavier Thompson. They have these questions on the outside. And then defensively, can Barry Odom's defense take another step up? And if you can do those things, which is easier said than done, then we're talking about a team that, in my opinion, could be the second team in the SEC West, a team that can be competing for a New Year's Six Bowl, that can be sitting there probably at 9-3 at the end of the regular season and feeling like, wow, we took another step in year 3. But I'm a Sam Pittman believer. I think guys love playing for him. I think coaches love being a part of his staff. And I think that's a great foundation to build a program on.
I totally agree with you. Another one, Mike Leach, Mississippi State. They throw the ball about 60 times a game. A lot of times, it seems like they throw it more than that. But their passing game is a de facto running game, it seems like. Can you win 11 or 12 games in the SEC doing that? I don't see how it's possible.
No, I don't think that's their upside. I don't. I mean, we're talking about a program that has one winning season in SEC play in the 21st century, and it was 2014 with Dak, which was their all-time great season. So it is not an easy thing to do. I'm higher on Mississippi State this year. I've been finishing 4th in the West. I have them at 8-4. I think that they're going to go into LSU and win that game, which I know that kind of surprises a lot of people because historically that's not been a matchup that they've fared very well in. But I still think that they have the ability to catch that one team. That maybe two teams that they don't have that talent level of. But the issue is there is a blueprint to stop Mike Leach's offense. And if you can get pressure with 3 and you can be one of those teams, then you're going to be able to obviously defend that zone a lot better. And you're going to be able to figure out how to slow down the air raid. And they're going to have a really tough time sustaining drives. The thing that they've been able to do really well so far is they actually have a defense. They love Zach Arnett, the defensive coordinator who runs the 3-3-5. He's one of the up-and-coming defensive minds in this sport. And so I think as long as they can keep him around, which is not a given, then that kind of elevates their floor to a different place. They're going to be one of the better defenses in the SEC this year. I firmly believe that. And so if you can have those two things working in synergy, then they have the ability to be probably an 8-4 team this year.
Yeah. All right, Connor, listen, man. The other thing, Georgia. We hear so much about Georgia. Last question. Do you think that Stetson Bennett IV, and that's just one of my favorite stories in college football. It was my favorite of the 21 season, how he just kept coming back after being told he wasn't the guy and go do something else. Do you think he's going to be asked this year something? Last year he didn't really have to with that defense. Hey, you got to go out there and win the game, because I think he will, but I think he's going to rise to the occasion, because you don't win a national championship because you're lucky. You don't win it just because you got a great defense. I think he just has the right stuff to win again. And if the defense is good enough, offensively, Georgia with Todd Monken, I think can do it again.
Yeah, the biggest thing that was kind of overlooked amidst all the talk about Stetson Bennett last year was he was able to execute Todd Monken's offense in a different way than he was in 2020. And he was hurt for part of 2020, and he had the shoulder issue. But we saw what it looked like when the play action's working. Man, if they can execute that play action, which is so crucial to the way that Todd Monken wants to execute that offense, then yeah, they're capable of stepping up this year. I think they're going to be a more efficient offense. At least they're going to be a little bit more prolific, even if the raw numbers don't show it at the end. The difference is they're not going to get the short fields that they did at the same rate last year, right? That Georgia defense just got off the field constantly. It was 3 and out here, 3 and out there. They're constantly taking over from the 40, 50-yard line. They're going to have those longer drives. They're going to have to be able to throw passes into the fourth quarter sometimes, although the schedule sets up really well. It's very favorable for them. I think Stetson Bennett can be a really solid SEC quarterback. I don't really have any doubts about that. The question is, what's it going to look like when he's trailing? What's it going to look like? Is he going to be able to pull out the same sort of magic that he had in that national championship, coming back down against a Nick Saban coach defense in a national championship when his entire legacy was going to be defined by that? I don't know that he's going to necessarily rise to the occasion every single time he's needed to in those moments, but I do have faith in this offense. I have faith in those pass catchers, and I think that they're still going to be one of the best offenses in the SEC this year.
I agree. Listen, Connor O'Gara, thank you so much for your time. I know you got to get to another meeting. Tell people how they can follow you and about your podcast coming up, and always love having you on. Look forward to your next visit already.
Yeah, appreciate that. We are cranking out tons of content, SaturdayDownSouth.com, all things Crystal Ball Week. We had Top 25 Week last week, running through all the different rankings, not just teams, but quarterbacks. We're talking about coordinators, coaches, everything. So I always tell people one-stop shop for all things college sports is SaturdayDownSouth.com. Saturday Down South podcast is where you can find me on the airwaves. talking about everything college football, not just SEC, but we have a lot of fun over there. So if you can, give us a follow on all of our social media platforms as well. Sat Down South on Twitter, Saturday Down South on Instagram. We like to keep it all things college football. That's what we do.
Look, anything that's good for college football, I'm a fan of. So we're a fan of you. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, you bet. All right, Jimmy, we lost you there for a minute, and so you missed some of what we were talking about. But really, the A&M thing is, and that's at every school. You get a coach that has a big contract, and he starts to win a few games. All of a sudden, his agent is in there with you saying, "Hey, we've got to renegotiate this contract for even more money." It's like a trap that you're just sucked into, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But at the same time, the athletic director can say, yeah, I like the way we're progressing, but, we're not going to rush into this. I mean, it's not like you're ready to have to go to the YMCA or anything, I mean, when you talk about SEC coaches, I mean, there might be one or two that make less than $4 million, but if I'm an SEC athletic director and I've especially a coach that's relatively new, or it's their first head coaching position, you got to be cautious. I know Sam Pittman's first year, he was only making like $1 million, and that wasn't much more than he made as offensive line coach at Georgia. Now, he was the highest paid offensive line coach in the country, but then after 1 year, they upped the ante there. And then after last year, now he's in the $6 million a year club, and deservedly so. And that's how you have to handle, I think, those coaching contracts. And then if you have agents of a coach that's already making really good money, and then you have a 3 or 4 game winning streak, and you're demanding right now, hey, we got to talk extension. That's one of those situations where, hey, if you don't like this current $40 million deal you've got right now, maybe you might be looking to go to another school where you can give more. But right now, that's where we're at. You know, and so it's always just a fluid situation, and especially with what's happened over past years, where the agents have really just controlled the dynamic. And I think now, again, athletic directors at other schools that haven't signed their coaches to these ginormous deals, like LSU with Brian Kelly and so forth, you just got to be really cautious with that, because if you pull the trigger too early and then things start to go downhill, you've got a lot of questions to answer to in regard to the big money boosters and the board of trustees and all those people.
Well, and you do, and at some point, some athletic director is going to have the stomach to stand up and say, "Look, enough. If you want to go somewhere else, I'll help you pack your bags. In fact, I'll pay for the move. Okay, I'll pay your moving expenses." That's when we're going to flip the narrative here. But right now, Jimmy Sexton, he really doesn't deal with the players. He deals just with the coaches. And I bet he's negotiated over $1 billion worth of contracts. And look at schools like Nebraska and Auburn and LSU that are paying, $20 and $30 million that they're forking over now for coaches to not coach. The witness protection program, if you want to call it. But that's really what it is. I think you got to be very careful. You ought to have a coach hired and give them a base like it used to be. You have a base, then you've got, and I know they do, but I would say, we're going to pay you this much, but you've got to win. Here's your base. If you win this many games, it just goes up like the rest of the world. And you say, well, you can't do that. Well, you can if everybody started doing it. But the cost, when a coach, what coaches do is they'll go make up stories, and agents are famous for this. They'll just put it out there that, hey, I got people coming after my coach. If you're the Vanderbilt coach, Clark Lee, I know he's a Vanderbilt alumnus. A lot of people call it alumni or alumni. There's no such thing. The singular definition of a graduate of a university or college is you are an alumnus of that school. You're not an alumni. That's plural. Got a refresher course on English. Drives me crazy. But if Clark Lee goes 9-3 this year at Vanderbilt, the odds of that happening are about like the odds of me signing an NBA contract tomorrow. Okay. But if it happened, his agent would be able to go to Vanderbilt and just, wouldn't he, Jimmy, be able to get pretty much whatever he wanted? I mean, it's just how it works, you know. And so, look, I hear that bing. That means the StreamYard in the green room, and now on the sidelines is our friend Yancy Porter. Yancy Porter down in Oxford, Mississippi, from the Grove, from his home, from the Beacon. It doesn't matter. Yancy Porter, talking Ole Miss is as good as it gets. Yancy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. How about you?
Good. I called you Yancy Grove.
Hey, I've been called worse. I can promise you that.
That's right. And by the way, I think we had this discussion with Jimmy and me, and maybe you were on here several weeks ago. Was it 1984 or 89 or 90 when the Grove really took off? I mean, people used to drive their old wood panel station wagons out there back in the day with a steamer pack of crystals and some, you know, Miller High Lifes or Miller Low Lifes, as Haygood calls them. And that was tailgating. And now, you know, you've got, I mean, you know what the Grove is. It's the greatest tailgate spot in America. But all that aside, Ole Miss football, man, it's hot. You got Lane Kiffin, one of the more visible, quoted coaches around. So we're going to do this. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want you to talk about Kiffin's Rebels, the quarterback situation. Healthy competition is good, and he knows how to coach that position. But we're going to break it down when we come back in just about a minute or so on this final segment of Sidelines with Yancy Grove. I love it. Yancy Grove Porter in Oxford after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Yancy, let's get going here. The Rebels quarterback situation. We don't know for sure who it is, if it's Luke Altmaier, Jackson Dart. One thing, Jimmy, you and I and everybody listening and watching Sidelines knows, Lane Kiffin will find a serviceable quarterback who will eventually become highly touted. That's just the way it is with Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean, when Altmaier came in last year for a few plays in that Tennessee game, I mean, he performed flawlessly, and the Baylor game was a little bit different. I mean, I think Ole Miss was just, I think, celebrating a historic season that they just completed leading into the bowl game, and I think Baylor just caught them a little fat and happy there. And well, I think what a lot of people forget is that when Corral got hurt in the Baylor game, they weren't moving the ball anyway because Ron Roberts had come out there with a brilliant game plan, and they were just moving players around in different sets and formations, and positioning players in different spots, and it really confused the Ole Miss offensive line when they were blitzing guys, and they had trouble picking up everybody, and it just really caused havoc with that Ole Miss offense. But again, I really think Altmaier, if he is the starter, I think he's going to be really solid because he's already been in, some difficult SEC environments, and he's performed well. But I think Yancy told us the last time we spoke with him that in this camp that Dart has looked really good. And I know they had their first scrimmage, I believe, on Saturday, and just want to get an update on that. Now, also what surprised me with what Yancy had to tell us last week was that Kiffin had opened some practices, and you got to be the only, I guess, media people in the league that have had that luxury. And I was curious if you guys were able to watch any of the scrimmage.
Yeah, Jimmy, we were at the scrimmage Saturday. I guess this was the 5th or 6th full live scrimmage that I've personally had a chance to watch since spring practice started. Kiffin is really getting comfortable here at Ole Miss. He's even allowing his assistant coaches to talk to the media. That was not available for the first 2 years while he was at Ole Miss. Now he's opening some practices to the public. That's what normally happens when a head coach is really starting to kind of get in a groove out of school. Kiffin's just changing a little bit since he's been at Ole Miss, and that's given the luxury for not only the media but the fans to get an opportunity to look at the team. And three things that really stood out to me from this past scrimmage. One, the defensive line dominated the Ole Miss offensive line like I haven't seen in the last 25 years of being in the business. Part of that was their two starting offensive tackles were not playing in the game. Nick Broker, they're really not enough to see. They've seen enough of him. They wanted to try some different combos. And then Mason Brooks, who's really is truthfully getting beaten out by a freshman named Jaden Williams from Arkansas. He got hurt in the very first drive of the game, and he didn't play for the remainder of the game. So, they were trying different combos out. They didn't scheme against Ole Miss's defensive line. Ole Miss is running a lot of stunts, so it really did favor the defensive line. But regardless, I counted 14 sacks during the scrimmage. The story of the game really was that Dart just looked really flawless. He was 17 for 20 during the scrimmage for 247, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But if you look deeper into the stats there were 5 or 6 plays where he would have been sacked that they allowed the play to continue to develop. They were not bringing the quarterback to the ground. It was more two-hand touch. Don't want quarterbacks getting injured. So those stats really were kind of deceiving, I would hate to say, because, several of those completions he had, he would have been sacked. That's my worry about Dart. The good news about Dart is he's learning the offense much better. He's become much more accurate. The bad news about Dart, he's still hanging on the ball too long. You can't get 8-10 sacks against you as an offense and win big ball games. So that's something Dart's going to have to continue to improve on. He did have a drive or two where he got the ball out of his hands quickly and he looked flawless. There's no question Dart's the most talented quarterback on the team. It's just him continuing to develop. As far as Luke Altmaier, who had the big-time lead going into this fall camp, Luke just didn't have one of his better days, honestly. I still believe in Luke. I still think it's a very tight race, but there's no question that Dart has closed that window, so to speak, between the two. And another story, I think, guys, is Kincaid Dent. You know, nobody continues to talk about him, but all he did was go 7 of 7 for the game, 2 touchdowns, flawless both drives. I believe now he's 19 for 20 in the 2 scrimmages. He continues not to even be mentioned, but he's a guy that all he does is make plays and doesn't make mistakes and makes the right decisions. I don't know if he'll ever be thrown into that conversation with Dart and Luke Ottmeyer, but I would think at some point you have to start mentioning him as a 3-man quarterback race and not a 2-man quarterback race.
All right, let's talk more about him. I mean, is he going with the not the 1s, the 2s, the 3s?
It's going with the 3s, and that's what a lot of people say. Hey, Yancy, he's going against the 3rd-string defense, but guess what? He's playing with the 3rd-string offensive line, wide receivers, and running backs, right? It's a two-way street. You know, my son, I know that very well coming into high school as a freshman at quarterback. He runs 3rd string, and I see the difference of the players he's playing with on the O-line and wide receivers and running back, and there's a big difference. But let me say this, okay? Ole Miss's defense now is to a point where you really can't tell the difference between the 3rd-string defense and the 2nd or the 1st-string defense. This defense, and I've told y'all this the whole time, they're going to lean on this defense. That defensive line for Ole Miss is downright nasty.
This is what's really got my radar up. 14 sacks. I mean, we know what happens in practice. You know, they stop them before they get to the quarterback. But Ole Miss's defensive front, again, you got to go back 30 years ago to Dwayne Dotson, Cassius Ware, Tim Bowens, a.k.a. Jefferson from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I mean, that
Norman
was
Hand.
Norman Hand, badass defense. I mean, that was an all-timer.
Yeah.
They destroyed and just blew up opponents. And this Ole Miss team with Lane Kiffin running the offense, he wasn't running the offense 30 years ago. He was still in high school. This is the most intriguing thing about this Ole Miss team is the talent on the defensive front. And what does Chris Partridge like to do? I mean, we talk about it a lot in this league. A lot of people, they like to do, rush 3 and what they call the dollar defense and drop 8 back. Or it's certainly the dime packages now are everywhere and in the quarter. But I got to ask you, where did these guys come from? They've just quietly been building this deep roster of defensive linemen at Ole Miss. And the fact that this is the 3rd year under Lane Kiffin, his father, I'm sure, is involved in strategizing and working with them, but I don't think it's resonating or sinking into most people, Yancy, how profound it is when someone like you, who has forgotten more about Ole Miss than most of the free world knows, makes a statement like that. And I'm giving you credit because I know you know what's going on down there.
Yeah, man, easy there, Rob. The transfer portal and JUCOs, you have 3 transfers that are really making an impact on that defensive line. Not first-year transfer. These are guys that have been in the system a couple years, one even 3 years. And then you got 2 junior college players that are in their 2nd year in the season with Ole Miss, with Aiton and Gordon. So that's 5 guys right there out of the 10 to 12-man rotation. But, I don't see a Norman Hand, Tim Bowens on that front. Nobody that's a top 10 type NFL pick. But I see a lot of really quality guys that could go 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. 10, 12 deep, I would say, of players that are bona fide SEC players. Normally, Ole Miss is going to have 4 that are really good, and then you're lucky to have a 5th or a 6th. Yeah. So injuries are really a factor. But this year, injuries are not going to be a factor for Ole Miss as long on that defensive front.
All right, Jimmy, I know you got a question or two for Yancy. We got about 7 minutes to go.
Well, I know anytime you have a quarterback competition, you like to have a timeline on when you make a call maybe on the starter. just listening to you, it appears that this is going to go down almost to opening day. So I'm curious, what do you feel your timeline is there? And I guess we have to wait until this final scrimmage. I mean, that will be the ultimate decider. But what's kind of your gut feeling as far as that goes? And also, I wanted you to give us a quick update on how the receiver core is developing, and specifically USC transfer Michael Trigg, who came to Oxford along with Dart.
Yeah, the timeline, Jimmy, nobody specifically asked him yet, when do you plan on announcing the starter for Ole Miss? My best guess, Jimmy, is probably going to be the Monday before the first game. He's going to announce the starter and roll with him. You know, could there be a change after that? Certainly, if they're not playing up to his standard. But I believe that's going to happen in about a week from now. The second question about the wide receivers, again, unfortunately, anybody that was nicked up in the least, or they had faith in, they knew what they could bring to the table. They really didn't play a lot there in the scrimmage. The good news is Mingo, he's the guy. You know, when you watch him for a play or two, you say that guy's got all SEC potential. He stands out amongst that group. He made a couple catches in the first possession. He came out for the rest of the scrimmage. Heath did not play. Malik Heath, he didn't play for whatever reason. The Robinson, the kid from UCF that transferred in, he didn't play in the scrimmage. So your top three guys barely played. Quay Davis, a JUCO transfer from last year, really stood out there in the game. Braylon Brown, a true freshman last year that hurt his knee. He made some nice plays. But, you know, they look good, Jimmy, but still, you know, without their three big dogs, so to speak, you know, they're still lacking a little bit there to me. I thought linebacker was still a question mark that we've been talking about all season. They had two or three of their top linebackers, the same group of guys. They missed the scrimmage. So I'm a little bit more concerned about linebacker than wide receiver. But that's kind of where we stand right now. I think really the biggest question mark besides the quarterback is who's going to be the punter. The soon starting punter has been nowhere to been seen for the last couple of weeks practices. So I think that's going to be a free for all. And like Lane says, hopefully we don't have to punt much this year.
Well, you also got special teams are about a third of every game, and yeah. You hope that guy emerges at some point. The takeaway from what you're saying about Ole Miss is that with the portal, and Lane Kiffin and his staff have one of the top 2 or 3 portal classes in the country, and what you sign in really December, and the end of it is February, but it's 80 or 90% completed in December. You get these guys coming in for winter workouts and spring practice. Everybody is getting more and more of their players to graduate high school early and come in. So Lane Kiffin is accelerating his climb, his ascent to the top because of that. I mean, in the second year that he's there, they win 10 games. I mean, look, people wake up. This is not, Ole Miss after Hugh Freeze left and the probation. What he's done is remarkable because they could have fallen into an abyss. And you know what I'm talking about when you get on probation or the penalties, that 4 or 5 years of hell that Ole Miss went through. They should have been given credit for time served. I just think it's a remarkable job. We got about a minute and a half left, Yancy, but you just laid out and made a case for Ole Miss, again, at a minimum to win 8-9 games. And if the quarterback situation clicks, they're in every game.
Yeah, Dart's got such a high ceiling. If he can continue to develop and get the ball out of his hands quicker, the ceiling really is high. The bottom line is Ole Miss caught Lane Kiffin at the perfect time. If Ole Miss caught Lane Kiffin 5-10 years ago, before the portal, before the NIL and all these things, the results right now, Ole Miss would be in a total rebuild mode, right? But because of the rules that changed while Lane, and they didn't know that when they hired Lane, we didn't know that all this was going to transpire. So to speak, Ole Miss called lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it is.
Let's be truthful about it.
Yeah, and in the SEC West, I always say, there's nowhere to hide. Not that the East isn't good. I mean, that's where the defending national champion is. And you got Tennessee coming up, Kentucky, which is not just a basketball school, John Calipari. It's also a football school.
Yeah,
but what I see
will be a sleeper.
Yeah, they will be. But Yancy, look, what are y'all talking about right now over there on the Rebel Yell hotline?
Just about these practices, just the scrimmages. We have the Ole Miss football radio broadcaster on, along with ON3 Ole Miss Spirit on this past Monday, and that's what it'll be about from here through the season. I mean, it's all football. Football makes the world go round and round at every SEC college town not named Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. And
they're working on that.
Yeah, as Franz Beard said in Gator Bait Media this morning, those multi-billion-dollar deals are being done because of football, not anything else. Look, Yancy, great stuff, Jimmy, as well.
Thank you, guys.
You bet. Love having you on here. Go out and help
everybody. Have a blessed day.
You do too. And I want to say it, man. He's right. Have a blessed day. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us. God bless America. We'll see you tomorrow.